Hi guys, welcome back. We are going to continue where we left off, and what we're going to do is talk a little bit more about the dashboard. Now think about the dashboard as just some common actions that you can perform. You can still do these things without the dashboard. And AutoHotkey itself, remember, is just for you to create scripts in a text file. So most of these things that you're going to see here is a one-time thing. So in this video, I'm going to focus a little bit more on the settings here for the launcher and the editor settings more than anything else. But let's go ahead and start with what this welcome panel here is. If you're completely new to AutoHotkey and also completely new in programming, I would suggest you looking at these manuals right here. That will get you started fairly quickly. If you're somebody who has a little bit of programming experience, though, I would actually encourage you to start with the quick reference instead of the other ones above, because this one gives you a very good overview or quick overview about how the AutoHotkey language actually works, the scripting language itself. So if you have some programming experience, you will be able to kind of like interpolate the information really quickly to what you already know. So here with the concepts and conventions, they're going to go ahead and talk about things that you might be familiar with. If you have no background in programming, this might make little sense at the beginning. Later on, when you start creating your own scripts, that might kind of like start making a little bit more sense. So I would definitely start here. If you have some experience, if you have never programmed in your life, then start up here. Now here, in the previous video, we saw how we could create a new script. And as I mentioned, this is just a completely a text file. So that means you can open it with any editor. And we took a look at Notepad at that time, in which I just started a new file and just created a hotkey and a hot string in there to show you more or less how you can start off. But Notepad is not an editor for programming. So if you have very quick things that you want to do, say, for example, just a hotkey that launches a file, a program, or opens a website, that's easy for you to just open Notepad, create the hotkey, you're good. But if you're trying to create a little bit more of an automation software that does more actions than just that, then you will have to start looking into other editors. That's what the editor settings button here is for. So I will make a dedicated video about which editors are out there. Actually, when you click on this, you get a link down here that says editors with AutoHotkey support. We'll dive a little bit deeper into that topic later. But this allows you to pick what the default editor is for AutoHotkey scripts. And what that means is, for example, when you have a script that is running, you can right-click on its task icon, and you can hit the button here that says edit this script. When you click on that, it will open the default editor for you to kind of like code in it, right? Now, if you do the same from, say, the Explorer window here, you can just go to wherever you have an AutoHotkey script, all right? And when you right-click on in here, you might not see certain options because Windows 11 decided not to show them. But if you shift right click, you will be able to get this option to edit the script as well. And again, this would open your default editor so you can go ahead and make your changes there. Now that's the main difference. Editors that are meant for coding allow you to have syntax highlighting to make it easy for you to understand or make sense of the code. Notepad is not built for that, so there will be no coloring. You might not like the colors, but they help a lot when you're looking at a lot of code. It makes it easier to understand what's going on. So we're going to talk about different editors. In my case, in here on this channel, I'm going to be using Visual Studio Code because it has some features and some plugins that in my professional day-to-day, I use very often, not only with AutoHotkey, but other languages. So that's why I default to that. There are other editors out there that are easier to understand and simpler. But if you do want to use VS Code, yeah, you can do so as well. You just have to select the editor settings here, and you click on Visual Studio to make it your default editor, and then you say OK. You can choose anything, Notepad, Notepad++, there's Site for AutoHotkey, there's a HK Studio, and many others that we will look at later. So with that, that's how you configure your editor, and that's the reason why you need to do that at some point. It's just, if you chose one, go ahead and set it up as your default editor. But here's the one that is more important. That's the one that I wanted to kind of like focus a little bit more on this video, is the launcher settings. So whenever you create an AutoHotkey script, you can tell AutoHotkey whether that is a V1 script or a V2 script. And the reason why now we have a launcher is because you can have both types of scripts running on your computer at the same time. And just as a little bit of a test on that, this script, and some of you who have watched my older videos might remember the AutoHotkey toolkit that I created as a project. Now it has syntax highlighted. At that time it didn't have that. But this tool, it is a V1 script, and I decided against converting it to V2 because it had too many lines of code, and I decided, hey, I will rewrite it from scratch. Maybe a video for the channel while I recreate this toolkit. But this is a V1 script. On the other hand, I have other tools like this one here that it is actually a V2 script that we created on the Automator. And this is completely V2. And I am also running it at the same time in my computer. So you can have both V1 and V2 scripts running. And many times, let me show you this. This is one of the features that I had in AutoHotkey Toolkit, that you can run both versions, V1 and V2 at the same time. Sometimes you get some sort of statement, like this one, that is a valid statement both in V1 and V2. So right now, if I switch to V1 and I run this, I will get the text true. Basically, that's what this is saying. Show a box with the text true. In V2, if you switch this, it still works, but the effect is different. This is no longer text. This is something else. We will see that later throughout the videos that I create. But as you can see, the code is valid for both versions. That's what the launcher is for. This guy allows you to tell AutoHotkey, especially the launcher, what to do when it finds different types of AutoHotkey versions. For example, you can tell it, okay, I do want to run V1, but I want to run this specific version. So if there was an update, which by the way, there will be no more updates, V1 is deprecated. If there was another version, you could select the exact version that you want running every time you double click on a V1 script. Also, you can choose whether it is 32-bit or 64-bit or ANSI, whatever it is. So you can default to that. The same with V2. Okay, so if you have multiple versions, you can choose what is the default version. I usually go with the latest one that I have installed. Again, 32, 64-bit. And if the detection fails, like for example, this same script that I just told you about, yeah, it is impossible to determine whether it's V1 or V2 if you do not use the requires directive. Then it tells you, okay, which is your default one? Use one of the two. You can skip the whole thing and say, hey, run all my scripts with a very specific interpreter, and that's it. Don't try to make a selection. I definitely, if you're running both versions at the same time, I recommend you choosing these, but it's not necessary for you to do. Now, just as another point that I want to make is in relation to the previous video, I mentioned that if you install AutoHotkey using admin rights, you get these checkboxes right here that talk about having UI access. It's a very interesting topic that we might cover at some time. And what I meant was that if you do not install in admin mode, that means that you use it only for your own user, these two checkboxes would be disabled. You will not be able to use them, and that's the option that you lose. So sometimes you might need this access, the UI access, but be careful. If you install in user mode, these two are not going to be enabled, and that's what I meant in that video. This is where you choose that action. So if you want to skip the whole thing about, hey, the choosing or the interpreting or whatever, just make sure to use the requires directive. it is something like this: requires AutoHotkey, and then you tell the version, AutoHotkey v2.0, and that negates the whole trying to figure out what to run it with, because you just told it in your script which version to use. So in any case, if you don't have this on your scripts, then you will need these launcher settings. And what we're going to do in the next video, I'm just going to go over really quickly these 3 buttons, what they're used for, and then we're going to go ahead and start a little bit more going deeper into the language. So see you on the next one.